So how's it going, ladies and gents, and welcome back to the channel. Today, guys, it's been 1 day since the release of the exzero festival, and of course, with that, in fact, we already got a lot of wins, or a lot of rewards from, well, basically just using Megalith. So today we are just gonna create some decks, or 5 good decks that you can use, or that you might use during the festival, and it's pretty fun to actually create some random decks out of the blue. So first and foremost, let's get into Master Duels and, well, just basically create some decks. So here we are, guys, in the deck building. So what I'll do first is just create the deck, and then I'll just showcase this one afterwards. Okay. So basically, this is a true Draco deck that is good for the festival. So to start off, you have your Ash Blossom, your 3 copies of Majesty Maiden, and this is your perfect search for your true Draco monster. This one searches for your true Draco spell cards, and then this searches for your true Draco trap cards. This also, the 2 copies of Dryad is, or can spell summon your true Draco monsters from your deck to your side of the field in defense position. Now basically, you can go with 3 copies of this and remove 1 copy of either one of your true Draco spell cards, but I would prefer just setting off with 2, because you just need to spell summon it's either Majesty Maiden or even Ignis to your side of the field, and then they will do the trick and then summon more cards or set more cards to your side of the field for protection, and of course to spell summon additional true Draco monsters to the field. So with that is your monsters, your magic and traps. You have your Harpy's Feather Duster, your terraforming, just to get your 1-of copy of Dragonic Diagram. Now I didn't know that Dragonic Diagram was actually limited to 1. So we have here terraforming. We can go with Planet Pathfinder if you want, but it would get a copy of Pot of Duality, which of course I prefer having 3 copies of Pot of Duality, because I really like having 3 copies rather than 2. Yeah, it's just better. Next up, we have 1 copy of Lightning Storm. So basically, during the festival, you are gonna encounter a lot of players who are using heavy back rows, just like Eldlich, Floowandereeze, adventure players. So Harpy's Feather Duster and Lightning Storm can actually solve your problems for that. Dragonic Diagram, 1 copy. Kaiser Coliseum is pretty good as well. So when going up against Floowandereeze players, or even adventure tokens or adventure players, you can go with Kaiser Coliseum and just basically hold them from even summoning more monsters to their side of the field. So that's that. True Draco Heritage, 3 copies of that. Disciples of the True Draco, 3 copies also. Called by the Grave, Solemn Judgment, just for negating the summon, spell or traps, of course. Solemn Warning for negating summons. So Skill Drain and the Monarch Erupts are basically limited to 1, but it's still pretty good to have these cards on the deck. Next up, we have your copy of Goes and Match, and Goes and Match is pretty good against basically the Brave Engine, and of course Floowandereeze in general. Vanity's Emptiness is still be limited to 1, so we have 1 copy of this, of course. Lastly, you have your True King's Return, and of course your True Draco Apocalypse. So that is the True Draco deck that we have here. So next up, we are gonna do Floowandereeze. So stay tuned, I'll be right back. I'll just fast forward this clip. So basically guys, this is the deck for the Floowandereeze. So it's almost similar to the ones that we have in the loader decks for the festival, but with regards to that, we just added the Mist Valley Apex Avian, the Barrier Statue of the Storm, and the 3 Dimensions Shifter, which is pretty good with regards to the Floowandereeze archetype. So one Effect Veiler, of course, for if you are going against a mirror match, of course, you are gonna have to use Effect Veiler. So 2 copies. I was really torn by using 2 copies of Effect Veiler or Imperm. Either 2 copies of Imperm, just remove Dimensional Barrier and Effect Veiler, or just 2 copies of Effect Veiler for that matter, remove Dimensional Barrier if you want. But but having 2 copies of Effect Veiler is just good. Next up, we have 3 copies of Rubina, 3 copies of Eglin. So Rubina summoned to the field and then searches for another Floowandereeze monster. So Eglin's going to be summoned to the field, normal summoned of course, and then search for another level 7 monster from your deck, which is you always get your Empen or either your Snow. Now other players don't like to play Snow, but this is pretty good actually, having its piercing effect also, and I like piercing effect monsters. So 2 copies of Stray also for banishing cards from your opponent's graveyard, pretty good. Token can recover your banished cards. 3 copies of your Ash Blossoms, and then yeah, the basic stuff, the Stormlands, Barrier, 3 Dimension Shifter, 1 Apex Avian, and yes, 2 copies of Empen, 1 Snow. For your Magic and Traps, we have your Harpy's Feather Duster, because like I said, you are going up against mirror matches for Floowandereeze and even the Brave Engine. So heavy back rows, or if there are some cases you're gonna encounter Eldlich. And yes, we're gonna tackle Eldlich in a while. So yeah, Harpy's Feather Duster and Lightning Storm can actually cure those pesky back rows. Terraforming, just to get your the map thingy, yeah, Magnificent Map, you can get one of those. Your 3 copies Jack in the Hand, so this is pretty good. Reveal 3 monsters and then add 1 of those cards to your hand. 3 copies of Magnificent Map, 2 copies of Unexplored Winds. Some players would like to use 3 copies of this card, but having 2 is just enough, and I used the loaner decks for the festival, and yeah, 3 is just too much. 2 is just the right amount for that matter. Then 3 copies of Book of Moons, so having to affect these monsters or use the effect of your monsters, and then try to Book of Moon it if ever you are gonna get Effect Veilered or even Droplet. So this is pretty much useful. 2 copies of Called by the Grave, 1 Dimensional Barrier, just because. Wait, why did I get this one? No, you don't get this one. Go with. No, wait. I don't want to get Imperm. You know what? Go with that. So 1 Crossout Designator, and then 2 copies of Dreaming Town, and that is basically your deck for the Floowandereeze. You don't need Pot of Prosperity for this deck because there are your Floowandereeze monsters can search that for you, and it's just pretty useful. So next up, we are gonna tackle Eldlich. So stay tuned. I'll be right back. So there we are, guys. This is actually the Brave Eldlich deck. So this is more on special summoning monsters to your side of the field, and of course allowing you to protect your back rows, of course, with the help of Lord of Heavenly Prison. So first and foremost, we have your Water Enchantress, 2 copies of this, Wandering Griffin Rider, 1 copy, 2 copies of Lava Golem. Now there's some cases you can use 3 copies of Lava Golem and just remove 1 copy of either Kaiser Coliseum, but this can actually control your opponents from summoning a lot of monsters to their side of the field. So having 2 copies of Kaiser Colosseum is pretty good. 3 copies of Eldlich the Golden Lord, because having 2 is not enough, of course. Next, after your 3 copies of Heavenly Prison, if you're Magic and Traps, you go with 1 Lightning Storm just for the back rows or the front rows, whatever you choose to destroy or break. 1 Black Awakening, of course, right out of here, 2 copies of that. 1 Draco back, Kaiser Colosseum, 2 copies. So you can go with 3 copies, remove a copy of Solemn Warning if ever you want that. Now you can also go with limit, what you call that? You can also use summon limit if you want, but I prefer Kaiser Colosseum. It's much better. Curse Eldland, 2 copies of this. Fateful Adventure, 1 copy. 2 copies of Called by the Grave, 1 copy of White Destiny, of course, summoning your Eldritch monster from your hand or graveyard to your side of the field. Next up, your trap cards. You have evenly matched 2 copies of this. So if ever your opponent has established its battle phase and there's a lot of monsters or a lot of cards on the field for that matter, you can just use evenly matched to even the odds for your side of the field. Eldlich of the Scarlet Sanguine, 3 copies, of course, because you need to spell summon your Golden Boy to your side of the field. 2 copies of Solemn Judgment just to negate those normal summons, of course, for Robina and for other Floowandereeze archetype. Solemn Warning just because it can negate a summon. Of course, that is one of my priorities. Golden Land Forever, 1 copy. 1 skill drain, of course, because what is Eldlich deck without skill drain? So skill drain is a must for this deck, even though it is limited to 1. 1 goes in match, of course, because more on the Floowandereeze archetypes and even some other archetypes are using different attributes for this festival. So 1 Guardian of the Golden Land, 3 Hakero of the Golden Land, and then lastly 1 Conquistador of the Golden Land. So this is your Brave Eldlich, and this is basically on fire. If ever I have some copies of these cards on my collection, then I can use this one. But nevertheless, Megalith is still one of my prime choices, and it's easy to actually use during the festivals. And with that, I will showcase to you a different build for this matter. So just hold on. So this is an advanced build for the Megalith deck, and of course the other addition that I have added is the Aratron. So the Aratron, or Aratron, I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, but the Aratron is pretty good. Actually, just recycling its cards, or it's recycling its ritual monsters from your graveyard to your deck. So this is pretty good once this card is in your graveyard. So basically the addition also is 2 copies of Snow Rabbit, which of course is pretty good. 3 Imperms, and well, that's just basically just showcase the deck. So Ghost Ogre, 2 copies of that. 3 Ash Blossoms, 2 Water Enchantress, 2 Magic Cores, because these monsters, or the Adventure Engine, is pretty good, of course, when you have more of these monsters that can special summon to your side of the field. So 2 Wandering Griffin Riders, 2 Fall, 1 Ophil, 1 Haggith, 1 Uck, 3 Phaleg, 3 Bethor, and 3 Aratron. Magic and Traps, you go with the same thing as the other builds. Harpy Sweater Duster, Lightning Storm, Rite of Armaseer, 1 Draco back, 2 copies of Megalith Portal. Now you can go with 1 copy of Megalith Portal, and we go with Terraforming, like that. So that is 1 Fateful Adventure, 2 copies of Cold by the Grave, 3 Imperms, 1 Promotion, and 1 Emergence, just for spell summoning your Megalith monsters from your graveyard to your side of the field. So this is the advanced build for the Brave Megalith deck that I have. So without further ado, the last deck that I'm going to showcase to you guys is actually, well, we already have that one in the loaner decks, which is the Machina. So it was supposed to be 4 decks in total, but 4 is like of a awkward numbers. So 5 decks I'm gonna showcase to you guys, and this will be tweaked for if ever you want to use the Machina decks for the event. So stay tuned, I'll be right back. So this is the Machina deck, or the advanced Machina deck that I have composed. So 3 copies of Ash Blossoms, 3 copies of Gear Frame. Of course, Gear Frame is pretty good. We can spell some this card, or you can just equip this card to one of your Machina monsters. 1 copy of Possess Storage, 1 Rest Avenger, 3 copies of Unclassed Pair, because this one is, once this is added to your hand, you can spell summon this right away and use its effect. And then you have your Machina Fortress. This is just to pop 1 card in the field, and also this can be special summoned to your side of the field, of course. Next up, you have your 1 copy of Air Raider. Now you can go with 2 copies of Air Raider. Just remove what could I remove here? Maybe 1 copy of Solemn Judgment, then go for 2 copies of Air Raider, but I prefer just having 2 copies of Solemn Judgment because you're going up against other players, not AIs. So 2 copies of Solemn Judgment, then 1 copy of Air Raider, 2 copies of Irradiator, 3 copies of Metal Cruncher, 2 copies of Citadel, and 2 copies of Ruin Force, which is a 46-bit stick. This is very powerful. Your magic and traps, you just have the same old thing. Harpy's Feather Duster, Lightning Storm, 3 copies of Redeployment, and this is pretty much your bread and butter for the Machina archetype. Your Cold by the Grave, 2 copies of that, 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, 3 copies of Machina Overdrive, which is, of course, you can spell summon monsters from your deck. 2 Solemn Judgment, and 1, of course, Skill Drain. And this is actually optional. If you want to use this, you can go with 3 copies of Solemn Judgment if you want, or go with an Effect Wheeler. So basically, this is the edited version for the Machina deck that we have, or that we use in the festival. So basically, that is it for today, guys. And yeah, I've been talking for the whole 35 minutes of this video, and yes, I will edit this one just for your sake. And keep safe, good luck, guys, and hope you like this kind of content. Subscribe if you want, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.